We're delighted to introduce No Limits, the Health Hackathon. This session is supported by LIC. We thank them. Mukesh Bansal and Manasi Subramaniam are with us. I would like to invite, please come upon the stage.
Thank you.
Mukesh and Manasi. Mukesh Bansal founded Myntra and Cult.Fit, two of the most iconic brands to revolutionize Indian fashion and health, respectively. His latest book, Hacking Health Demystifies Science and explores nutrition, fitness, immunity, weight management, and mental health. In this conversation with the editor-in-chief of Penguin Random House India, Manasi Subramaniam, he talks about his personal experiences and draws from ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science while debunking fad, diets, and wellness myths to help people make smart choices in pursuit of good health. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mukesh and Manasi.
Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm so delighted to be in conversation with Mukesh Bansal, who, let me tell you, until I read his manuscript, I thought I was a very fit person, but he has completely shattered all my illusions. I've learned so much about how to take care of myself thanks to his book. So let's dive right into it. So Mukesh, let's get started. This is the book, it's called Hacking Health, and Hacking Health opens with a harrowing incident from your own personal life, which tells us how you got started on your own fitness journey. And I think we'd all love to hear about what happened and how you ended up on this journey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Absolutely delighted to be here. Mansi, you've been a big help in putting the book together. I think for most of us, health, we all take health for granted. And usually, something happens in our life, right? A big event, big setback, and suddenly we wake up to the importance of health. I think something like this happened to me. This was in 2007. I was just starting Myntra, and my setup was such that I would be in India for 3 weeks and US 1 week. And after doing that for 5-6 months in a row, on my sixth trip back to US, I was in a just horrible condition. I could not. I had a terrible headache. Had lot of fatigue, and I just couldn't figure out what it is. I ended up walking into an emergency room, and I will not bore you with the details, but I was diagnosed with meningitis, which could potentially be very deadly depending upon what kind it is. In the end, it turned out to be more viral variety, which is treatable with 4 or 5 days of stay at the hospital. But I realized that, how quickly, I have always seen myself a very fit and active person. And despite that, ending up in the situation which was mostly related to poor immunity because of, when you're traveling back and forth between 2 time zones, not getting enough time to sleep, a lot of stress of starting a company and so on can massively diminish your immunity. And, as a result, it's easy to get infected and so on. So had that thing, post that after I recovered, my interest in learning about health, went up significantly. And I have been on the journey since then. I think it's in 15 plus years. I keep reading everything about health and fitness. I practice, what I preach. I've been experimenting on myself. And of course, last 7 years been involved with building CureFit, which is, India's largest fitness company. And as part of that, we have learned a lot about fitness. So I've tried to bring all those learnings together in writing this book.
So you just mentioned just now that you read a lot about health and fitness. And there's just so much information out there, Mukesh. Every single day. Yesterday I read that coffee was bad for me. Today I'm reading coffee is good for me. Is chocolate good for me? Is chocolate bad for me? There's so much information out there. And there has to be some kind of a solution to this information overload. And there's also so much of contradictory information. How do I teach myself, how do I teach myself to read smartly, understand what is accurate? How do I sort of bust some of the myths around me?
Right. So what makes health so fascinating is, simultaneously very simple and very complicated. The fundamentals of health are super simple. But then there is, a lot of science. Science has evolved significantly last 40, 50 years, and which is what makes health very complicated. Whether you're reading something which is based on something, which is 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 50-year-old. So I think there are two ways to go about doing this. The easy ways, there are some very simple rules and heuristics. You can follow those. If I have to simplify, all these rules into just one line, it boils down to, eat less, sleep more, and always move. Like in the book, very first chapter, we have 10 simple rules. You can go through that. I think other way to look at it, I can quote some other, some of the authors in this space. Michael Pollan has a couple of things. He's a very well-known nutrition author. He talks about, eat something which grows on plants and not made in plants, right? So that's one way to look at things. He also talks about, only eat stuff that, your grandparents or great-grandparents can also recognize as food, and not something that they'll look very foreign to them. So you can start with some of these, simple heuristics. You can always fall back on conventional wisdom. I think the things which are deeply part of our cultural fabric, they've been tried and tested for thousands of years. They exist till today because they work. So you can start from there, or you can take time and effort to delve deep into science of health, which is very fascinating. I really enjoy how far the science has come. And the most fortunate thing is that today the science and the ancient wisdom are starting to intersect. There are a lot of common themes that both agree on. So yeah, it is both simple and complicated. It depends on your level of interest. If you're looking for easy hacks, book like this, is an answer. I have really, I think me and my team, have gone through a lot of research papers, hundreds of books, talked to a lot of experts, and tried to distill it all down into simple hacks. But I also believe, we should not only tell, do this and your health will be good. We should also explain what is the science behind it, right? So that you can make choices from informed manner. So yeah, I think that's it's a long answer, but really depends on how seriously you take your health, how much time you have, how much interest you have. But both solutions are available. There are some very simple things to do, and you can dive deep into this and understand for yourself why some things work, why something doesn't work. Every body is unique, right? Everything may not work for everyone. So, understanding those nuances can make your health journey even better.
There's science, and then there's pseudoscience. How can I learn the difference between the two? How can I, as an individual, when I receive a WhatsApp forward, how do I know whether to believe something or not?
Yeah, I think few things, right? One is anything which is good science generally, stands the test of time. So I won't jump into, something that just come out last year and becoming very popular, whether it's, I don't know, Brazil sprouts, is good for you, or Brazil nuts, which don't even grow in India, are good for you. I will not really jump into it. I think humans have known how to pursue good health for a very long period of time. We in India have known, right? A lot of our cultural, traditions incorporate all those, like, the fasting, for example, is part of all religious traditions, Even though modern science now validates it, we don't need to know. So I would say, I think, give time. We don't need to jump into the latest fad. Second, science, the way science works, this whole peer-reviewed journal mechanism. If you go into it, whenever something new comes out, if it is very sensationalized, there may be media articles, etc. For example, resveratrol, 20 years ago, there were some studies published, by Harvard Medical School about potential benefit of resveratrol, which is in red wine. And suddenly, the wine industry, start building upon that study, and there were all these articles why red wine is good for your health. But that was, just very early, just identification of minor benefit of potential molecule. What was not understood at that time, the amount of resveratrol you need to have any kind of antioxidation effort required to drink something like 6 liters of wine every single day, which obviously will kill you. So, but if you wait 10 years, let the science catch up, let different labs replicate the studies, validate from different angle, and then sometime they'll figure out something's good for you. Like, for example, today there are so many studies which validates the benefits of intermittent fasting. Yeah. So it's not pseudoscience anymore, because there is such a wide body of mainstream science. The evidence of that, how long we have known this, sometime, how many books are published on this, how many research studies, that unfortunately requires some time investment. if you are just, read something the newspaper today and start practicing it, it may very well be something, which just has come to light recently without enough adequate research. So I will suggest, you're better off staying away from very, very recent things.
So this thing that you mentioned about the wine industry, I find that so much of it just happens through lobbying. In your book, you've talked extensively about the vilification of fat by the sugar industry, for example. That's something that, it's really hard to know what to take seriously, what not to take seriously. And obviously capitalism touches everything in our lives. So in cases like that, what do you think is a smart approach? We know that red wine is, there are circumstances in which a glass of red wine might be useful for the heart. There are circumstances in which fat is good. There are circumstances in which sugar is bad. There are circumstances in which you should fast. There are circumstances in which you shouldn't fast. How do we make personalized choices that are not generalized choices? And how do we keep ourselves untouched by industry and the corporate lobbies?
Yeah, I think let me quickly touch upon the fact that industrial lobbies have very big role to play. Because if you think about the moment anything gets packaged and it can be sold in large volumes to retail stores, there are clearly commercial interests involved. I remember, I went to US when I was 22-year-old, and all these, stores will have, 0% fat and 1% fat. And, in those days, it was quite mainstream thinking that fats are bad for you. So therefore, you are better off buying 0% fat. But the thing is 0% fat, milk is even more concentrated. Milk also has natural sugars. And, now we know the fat in milk is actually quite healthy. We all need fat to survive. It does a lot of good things in the body. So, but, it helped tremendously, the sugar lobby to vilify fat, because, the sugar slowly made its way into everything, especially in the US, all kind of packaged food, high fructose corn syrup, which is basically a highly, extremely sweet sugar derived from, corn syrup, and extremely cheap, found its way into pretty much every kind of packaged food, whether savory snacks, sweet snacks, and so on. So, when an industry starts promoting, even today, television, you may see ads on something fortified, product X fortified by this thing, right? It's obviously, it may or may not be good for you, but it's definitely good for the company and the brand, promoting that thing. So I think again, goes back to, either you can fall back on things which have been there for a long period of time, or you can fall back on the mainstream science. Just to go back to some of the things you're commenting on, my understanding, and I know it's slightly controversial, because people love their alcohol, but now I have extensively studied, and there's definitely been time, I've enjoyed occasional, sometimes more than occasional glass of wine, but all alcohol is bad for you. There is absolutely no question about it. Whether you can enjoy it, socially, for sure, there are things that we need to do, we need to also enjoy life and be social and all of that, but as long as, people are making this choice in the conscious mind, what you're doing, and there may, and obviously, occasional glass of wine or alcohol every now and then is not going to, hurt anyone. But any kind of, regular drinking is not good for your heart, not good for your brain, not good for anything, right? That's science. We can still make choices, I don't always make all the choices right for me, but at least I'm trying to be a lot more informed and aware of what current science has to say, right? Similarly, fats, right? I think there is so much science now, and intermittent fasting related to that is, by and large, fats are good for us, right? Fats come in many varieties. There is, without going too much into technical details of monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and so on, is basically all fats which grow on plants are good for you. The less processed, the better. Our fats have been an incredible source of energy for us because they are very calorie dense. The fat metabolism's body is related to so many things related to our health, including various lifestyle diseases. So having a healthy portion of fat from diet, as well as some kind of fasting regimen, which trains your body to store fat stored in our body as a calorie source, does wonders for the overall, metabolism of the body. So I think, unfortunately, fats were vilified by industry a lot, I think from 70s onwards. But now that wisdom has completely turned, backed by very, very strong science. I don't see it change in next 10, 15 years because the science around this is so robust. So I think we need to just see, when we are trying to any fitness regimen or any food regimen, we need to be aware of who is marketing it, right? And who stands to benefit from it. And then, does it tally with, what you intuitively know? Does it match with, what the local taste and preferences are? Does it also, is the science behind it, is it just something starting to come out now, or it has been there for a while? Yeah. Right? And these are good indicators that you can use to declutter, a lot of misinformation around health.
And we just spoke about the lobbying as well. I can't tell you the number of times I come across something that says, oh, this is immunity boosting and this is a metabolism hack and things like that. What is your opinion on supplements, like those protein powders or superfoods? Everything's a superfood now. What is your opinion on all of these things?
Yeah, by and large, I think, so supplements are, again, quite controversial. There's very little scientific evidence that for a normal person, if you have active, healthy lifestyle, balanced diet, and you are, regularly, engaging in some kind of movement, mostly you don't need supplements unless you have some kind of deficiency. And I think having annual health checkup is a great idea. That's the only way, you know what's happening. Sometimes, we have various kind of deficiencies which can lead to serious issues. So supplementation for tackling with a deficiency is a great idea. It's almost like a prescription. You may have a very specific performance requirements. So as an athlete, you're trying to maybe build muscles or improve endurance and so on. In those cases, and especially if you're a vegetarian, you may not have enough protein source. So considering something like whey protein may be a good idea. But by and large, so unless there is a very specific need you are clear on, I don't think supplements for everyone is a great idea. But having said that, I'm talking about mainstream, right? There are people, who call themselves, let's say, biohackers, right? Yeah. People who like experimenting, and to be in a full disclosure, I think I see myself, I enjoy this stuff, right? Not necessarily all of it is great for my health, but learning about it, experimenting, but knowing fully well these experiments come with a downside, a risk. Not the supplement industry is not regulated, which means it doesn't go through FDA approval. So pretty much anyone, as long as you claim that it is derived from something natural, etc., you can package and sell as nutrition. Sometimes quality is not great. So this is one of those things, right? It's almost like a mini health adventure. By all means, you can engage in it, but you need to know what you are getting into. You need to know what the risk involved, and sometimes it can backfire. So I don't think for an uninformed person indulging in heavy supplementation is a great idea. And same thing with superfood. I think superfood are oversold. Obviously, there are ingredients which are good for us. For example, turmeric. Turmeric is net quite healthy. Fortunately, it's been a big part of our culture, and now we know also molecular composition and why it works. But these things will give marginal benefit. It's not like having turmeric will you will never fall sick, right? In fact, just recovering from a viral, I've been having turmeric, for last many years, right? So I have not come across, and I don't think it exists in one superfood, but having, making choices about some of these things which are very nutrition dense. Nuts are an example of that. I think that's great for health, a lot of healthy fats. Berries are great because they have, lot of minerals and vitamins and micronutrients and so on. So having some of this natural so-called superfoods part of your diet is an incrementally good idea, but I don't think any one ingredient is ever, going to do wonder for your health. I think eventually health boils down to doing a lot of small things right, day after day after day, right? And it adds up. It compounds over a long period of time. I think that's really the only superfood in some ways that you can, practice on a daily basis.
So listen, we've talked extensively about food. So I have one last question before we move on to the other stuff in the book, which is, what was your last meal and what did you eat?
My last meal was this morning. So these days, I practice intermittent fasting. It took me, so I have known about benefits of intermittent fasting for at least 6-7 years now. There are so many studies, which correlate calorie restrictions with longevity. Also what, fasting does to your overall insulin metabolism and so on. But initially when I tried to get into intermittent fasting, it was very difficult. after a few hours, obviously you start feeling hungry and you feel, not able to focus and start to feel cranky and so on. There are many methods to do intermittent fasting, but eventually after a lot of trial and error, I'm able to arrive with, people can call it about 16-8 fasting, so which means 16 hours of no eating and 8-hour eating window. Again, people do it differently. My way of doing it is I'll have my breakfast meal around 9 a.m. and my, I don't know what to call it, lunch or dinner around 4 p.m. And those are my 2 meals. And now people who work with me, they see in the office at 4 p.m. my box comes, and in the meeting I open box and eat. So, and I give myself freedom to eat between that window as well. If I find a nice snack, I'll, might feel tempted. So I don't necessarily restrict too many things. So for example, today morning breakfast, there was some carb in form of, dosa and some, egg white omelette and some fruits and nuts. So it's fairly balanced, but I don't pay too much attention to what it is. But as long as I'm able to follow this, intermittent fasting diet, the reason I cut off my eating at 4 p.m. is there's also very high correlation. If you close eating window 3 to 4 hours before sleep time, by the time you go to bed, your stomach is nearly empty and you have much more restful sleep. You can validate that by, there are all kind of sleep trackers now. I like this, Oura Ring, which is a most advanced cutting edge sleep tracker. And you see like what a big difference not eating, 4 hours before sleeping makes to your score. So I'm used to that now. So this is what I'm following now. I believe I'm right side of science. Just to other caveat on the intermittent fasting, you don't have to, if at all you want to try. One is you have to phase it out. It's very difficult to go from eating 4-5 times a day to suddenly not eating twice a day. So you have to, pace it out over a period of time. Slowly shift your eating window. Second, I think now science says it doesn't really matter if you're going to follow 16-8 or 14-10 kind of regimen. It doesn't really matter when you do the 14 hours, 16 hours. The only thing that matters is that some training your body that is all right to, also use fat, which is stored in our body. It's a evolutionary mechanism. All of us has the capability to store fat because in the ancient time, we will not always, find food on demand or order on Swiggy, right? You have to go look for food. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. And therefore, we have this ability to, in the time of plenty, the bodies will automatically store a lot of fat. And when the food is not available, we'll start converting fat into calories. So intermittent fasting retrains that mechanism. And one sec. Despite everything in Hacking Health, still not managed how to not get sick. So I'm just recovering from a viral. So back to you, Mansi.
So let's talk a little bit about sleep. I think increasingly now everybody is recognizing the importance of sleep. So tell us how you think it is possible to get like the required amount of sleep, especially when we all lead such busy lives. How do we focus on sleep? Why focus on sleep? And how to make sure that this happens?
Yeah, first and foremost, we have to recognize that, if anyone has any interest in healthy lifestyle, sleep. I need some time, yeah. Why don't you share something from the book while I catch up my breath?
Okay. Well, so for those of you who haven't come across the book yet, this is the book. It's called Hacking Health. It's Mukesh's second book. His first book was called No Limits. And Hacking Health we've called it the only book you'll ever need to live your healthiest life. And one of the things that really attracted me to the idea of publishing the book is kind of what I said at the start of the session. There's just so much information out there. And sometimes you just want a one-stop shop. You want one place where you can go to for all the information you'll require, and you don't want to go to multiple sources, you don't want to weed through contradictory information, you just want to stick to one thing, and I feel like this is that book. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that has been the idea with the book, right? I think the culmination of this book has been, I would have read at least 100 books over last 10 years, and probably more if I go back, right? And typically the way health books are written, there are two varieties. There is one where somebody will say, this is a one solution, you do this, and it will, take care of everything, right? So there is that, kind. There's another, where people come up with a protocol, Atkins diet or South Beach diet, or, it's it's a very, that's prescription type, and the science type, there's go into science of one thing. Like, for example, on sleep, and I'll come back to your question on sleep, there's this fascinating book on sleep called Why We Sleep. I think bad time to have this cough attack, but we'll work through, we'll hack our way through this. So this, books like Why We Sleep or Role of Mitochondria and so on, they go very deep in one topic, and you develop a good understanding of that, but that alone does not translate into what you can do, in your lifestyle, how you change things for pursuing healthy lifestyle. So what I've tried to do in this book is to bring all those elements together in a as
Take your time.
sorry, yeah. So, how do you bring all those elements together in one place where you can understand the science, what works, how things work together. Everything is interrelated. For example, sleep and fitness have very high correlation. Every time you work out, you need adequate amount of time to recover while you are sleeping, right? So coming back to why sleep is important. I think throughout our entire evolutionary history, we have slept 7 to 8 hours. Every species of animal sleeps, because sleep is a time where our brains are most active. We have this 4 stages of sleep. We go through 4 to 5 times in the night. And without all of those stages happening, a lot of repair work that happens in the body, a lot of restoration, a lot of processing of memory for the long term, a lot of processes related to immunity don't happen. Toxins start to build up both in the body and the mind. So if you look into it, in the amount of, the most rejuvenating thing one can do is sleep. And there's so many studies where even little bit of sleep deprivation starts to lead to so many impairment of, the functions. Like there have been studies which shows that the 3-4 nights in a row, if you get a couple of hours less sleep, your cognitive impairment is same as having done heavy drinking. And then I'm sure everyone can recognize that on less sleep, you are not able to focus properly in the work time. Your ability to make decisions go down. So for me, I think the science is so strong now that not taking sleep is absolutely not an option. We are all busy. There's no question about it, right? I think for me, the reason I'm able to prioritize for sleep is because it improves my ability doing the balance 16 hours. I think I'm able to do a lot more. I feel more energized, more productive, able to get a lot more out of those hours. So having, yes, it takes effort for 1 or 2 extra hours of sleep, but the return on that, on the balance of the day is just, incredible. So yeah, I will very heavily endorse anyone interested in good health to first start with sleep.
And if you want to get a good night's sleep, there are very solid tricks and hacks in the book that you can follow. You can take a look at some of these tips here, and it'll teach you what you need to cut out of your life, what you need to add to your life, and how to get a solid night's sleep. How many hours did you sleep last night?
8, yeah.
Fantastic.
For me, 8 is average. Sometimes I dream of, even getting 9 hours, but 7 is absolute minimum. I think if it's below 7, I just feel the day is not going to be. Sometimes you have to power through, and I'm obviously not able to manage every single day. But yeah, I think 8 is ideal.
So let's also move on to the third rule. We've talked about eat less. We've talked about sleep more. The third rule is move every day. Exercise is one of those things. Again, I'm going to come back to the question of time. Exercise is one of those things that people always say, if I had a little bit more time, I would give myself a solid exercise regimen. I know I've certainly said it several times in my life, but I also know the impact of exercise. I know how much better I function when I exercise regularly. I know that my energy levels are higher, I feel better, I feel fitter. I even sleep better. Right. And so it's got constant impact on the way I function. But move every day also means making time. And most of us say we don't have the time to do it. But you know what, guys? This is one of the busiest people I've ever met in my life. And he makes the time. So Mukesh, tell us, how do you hack your time and productivity to make sure to exercise every day, A? And B, how do you pick which exercise to do? Do you do cardio? Do you do weights? Do you do yoga? There's so many things to do. How do you pick an exercise regimen that suits yourself?
So I have been active pretty much all my life, right? From sports to gym to variety of things that I'll come to. But through all of this, I realized in some ways exercise is not even the right word. I think the right word is movement. If all of us have a body, right, and our bodies exist, primarily for movement. So we can go from one place to another. We can forage, hunt, or do other productive things to our body, right? So our bodies are not designed to be stationary. When we are all sitting like this, I think nothing good is happening for us, right? We obviously need some rest every now and then, but primarily, the act of movement rejuvenates the body. At this point, I believe it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you move. Walking is a great form of exercise. These days, during my meetings, I just stand up. I'll just, stand up like this, right? And I'll be talking to Manasi, and Manasi will be looking at me, and it may look weird and awkward for some time, and eventually she will get used to it. Like, there are some of my team members are there, and
this is a challenge. Let's do the rest of the session standing.
It's not even a challenge. I think we should be able to do this like 5-6 hours a day. If we do burpees and stand, then it'll be somewhat a challenge, right? Maybe I'll I'll convince you for that sometime. But the whole thing is that movement is available to any time. And a festival like this, right? I'm sure you guys are walking from one hall to another. In a conference room, you can pace yourself. Between meetings, you can climb up the stairs, come down. There are so many workout, methods available to us. Walking, running, swimming. There are obviously gym workouts, where you are putting some load on your body by, lifting weights, etc. But in routines like yoga, you are using your body itself as a prop. Then you have dance kind of movements where you are using mind, coordination, balance. So at this point, my understanding is almost does not matter how you move, as long as movement throughout the day is part of your regimen. Sometime, couple of things if you're able to achieve. One is at some point during the day, take your heart rate up. Dance, running, swimming, cycling, those take your heart rate up. At some point, being able to use some kind of resistance training, which means, if I don't know, lift this chair, right? So I'm, exercising my muscles, right? If I do squat right now, I'm using my leg muscles. So it's just some kind of, progressive strength training and some kind of heart rate training. That's all you need. I think that's why, people in the, if you go to any village, you will not find people who are not fit, who look out of shape, right? Who are carrying too much excessive, body fat. Absolutely not in any tribal culture, right? If you go in the tribes, everyone looks like, they are work out all day and, chisel, six-pack, etc., right? So I think it's recognizing that our bodies are designed to move and find any way to move. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're moving, a lot of great things will happen to your body. I'll just share one more, kind of interesting fact I came across, which is basically this is one author. I'm not saying it's a mainstream science, but this person argued that our brains fundamentally evolved because to aid in locomotion. Like trees don't have brains because trees get their energy, everything just standing in one place. But we need to. This example of a sea mollusk, when it's born, it is a very tiny brain with a few hundred neurons, and it floats around in the ocean in the dark. And after some time, it finds a rock to make its permanent home. So it attaches itself to the rock, and then once it is firmly established, it slowly dissolves away its brain. All the neurons are dissolved away because now it's has no need to move anymore. It becomes a plant-like and gets its brain, right? So for the movement is very nourishing for our brain. A large chunk of our brain real estate is dedicated to, aid movement. Our entire visual cortex is the reason I can, see everything all around me. So I can, plot my movement. I can decide to go this way. Where is food? Where is prey? So it's just so essential to being, human that we have to find, time to move. And even though I run a fitness company, I would like all of you to be part of our fitness, chain. But you don't really need it. I think the truth is, if you are able to move throughout the day, you will do yourself in a world of good.
I mean, this man is telling you, basically, I created this fitness change, but you don't even need it. So you have to trust him, right? It's almost time for audience questions, but I have one last question, which is, what is the future of the body? You mentioned biohacking. There's a lot in the book about what lies in the future of the human body. So what do you think is in front of us, and how do we prepare ourselves for the future?
Yeah, I think we live in such an exciting time where our bodies and brains are, stopping to being a mystery. We are able to study it like, scientists study any other physical phenomena. Obviously, the genome has been decoded, almost 20 years ago. We are able to even edit our genomes. There are tools available that we can buy for few hundred rupees and start, some kind of at-home gene editing experiments. There is a lot of work happening in the understanding human aging process and tools and techniques and best practices for longevity. Just 4 months ago, I attended this longevity conference in San Francisco, which had some of the world's foremost aging longevity expert. Among them, a lot of people really believe that in next 10 to 20 years, we'll have a very, very precise understanding of exactly what happens in aging and what are the molecular mechanisms involved and how some of them can be modulated. Some can be slowed down. Some people believe some of them can be even reversed. There's a lot of debate on, what is a natural human lifespan. As you all probably know, the longest living human being so far has been about 122. There are multiple people who have crossed 115, which is currently considered as the maximum human, lifespan. But there are a lot of people, there are a lot of mainstream scientists like, Professor David Sinclair of Harvard or George Church and many others who believe that, we'll see human lifespan grow to, 150 or more. There are a lot of, biohacker people who experiment on themselves as well as people willing to experiment to try to, slow down aging. I think it's just a fascinating area. It's going to evolve. I don't think we have all the answers today, but those who are interested in this, there are a lot of fascinating books, conferences, research papers that you can look into it. But the one message I can give you is, if you are somebody who's interested in longer lifespan, there is a lot to be optimistic about. It's just the billions of dollars of research is going into it. A lot of products are coming out. And I think you should watch this space. Next 10 to 20 years, we'll see a lot of phenomenal development. I think, major development in this is, I don't know whether we'll really figure out to extend the human lifespan, but there's also a term that's used, health span, which is, in the past, we used to assume that by the time you are 60, 65, your body starts to wither away, your cognitive decline starts, you retire, and so on. I think there is now such, incontrovertible evidence that health span can easily be extended into your 80s and even 90s. And we have so many examples, all around us, people who are super active, continue to innovate, pioneer new things, drive new initiatives because they are able to invest in their health. So yeah, I'm super excited about what's to come.
Well, I always say my authors keep me on my toes, but in this case, it's literally true. My author is keeping me on my toes. We have a few minutes for audience questions, so I think there's a mic floating around. If you have, please raise your hand and a mic will find its way to you.
And may I request Manasi and while our volunteers reach you with a microphone to officially again unveil and show the book over to the audiences so that we know what kind of path-breaking things he's been speaking and which book he's referring to. Hacking Health. Thank you. Thank you, Manasi. Thank you. So we are open for questions.
I think, let's start.
Hello. Hi, Mukesh. I am Dr. Saurabh, and excellent talk. So we basically in India are very fascinated with the food, and the backbone is oils. Backbone are oils. And oil is a lobby-based thing, or which one you suggest? I have my understanding on this topic, but I would like to know it from you.
I think very simple answer is, fats are good for you. There is absolutely no question about it, whether it's ghee or coconut-based oil or olive oil. The few things to keep in mind is oil is obviously calorie dense, so quantity matters. You need to modulate that. 1 gram of oil, for example, is 9 calories versus 1 gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. Second thing is, when you boil the oil at overheat, it, transform into trans fats, which are potentially carcinogenic. So deep fried stuff, every now and then indulgence is fine. But because that when you bring the oil to a boiling temperature, it can result into, creation of the trans fats, which are potentially bad for you. Other than that, I think fats are a essential part of any healthy diet, in my opinion.
But we in India, we have a habit of cooking it, right? So we are heating it to the boiling point, and unlike in the West where they take it, consume it in a raw form. So anyways, we are cooking it for at least once. So which one to consume? What do you suggest on that?
I think my suggestion is to,
Just a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding is if you keep changing it frequently, that is good. That's what have been written in the books. Otherwise, what do you suggest? I'm not going into the details of mono versus polyfats and acids and all that. But yeah, what do you suggest on that?
I think in general, variety of fat sources and consume room temperature. Like in a roti, you put ghee on the roti, right? That's a great form, right? You can add in a liquid form to anything. Your nuts, are a great source of fat, right? I think fried stuff, I would say, my recommendation will be to not use it more than an occasional indulgence.
Thank you.
I can see a hand right up here.
Yeah, glad to hear. Thanks, Mukesh and team. There is a myth about the black coffee. Before moving to gym in early morning, we have to take a black coffee. So in a long run way, it is good for health or not? Because empty stomach, I don't believe we have to take a coffee.
So caffeine is one of those stimulants, which is generally good for you. I think it plays a big role in, just improving awareness and improving focus, etc. And now I know a lot of fitness goers, use coffee as a morning stimulant. I think it's one of the safest stimulant you can use. Couple of things to keep in mind about coffee is over a period of time, it's habit forming. You do feel good about, having your coffee. And anything you feel good, instead dopamine is involved and your body craves it more. So I think maybe breaking it after a period of time, giving a break after, let's say, every few months is a good idea. Second thing is it can also interfere with sleep. So generally it's recommended, don't have coffee after, midday. Midday for people can be 12 noon or 2 p.m. As long as you to avoid, on the whole, coffee is quite good for, overall your brain health.
Perfectly, thanks.
So glad to hear that as a coffee addict. There's a gentleman here, right here.
Hello. I have grown up in a very small town where I hear a lot about Ayurveda. Right? I still hear about Ayurveda. Ayurveda can do this and that. So what are your thoughts on that? Are Ayurveda still in the game, or we should stick to the modern science?
No, I think Ayurveda is very much in the game, right? If you look at mostly everything in Ayurveda is derived from, variety of herbs. And those herbs were chosen after probably, we can only speculate now, but probably after a lot of trial and errors. So it's gone through that process over thousands of years. And so it's a, very concentrated nature created molecules, which are part of a lot of those, herbal concoctions. And now again, fortunately science has come, which is able to understand what those, molecular components are. In fact, many of them are now, people are even trying to patent them and create, drugs and supplements out of them. So I think by and large, Ayurveda has been, in some ways finding new awakening, getting mostly validated by science. Ideally, there should be a lot of, peer-reviewed studies, etc., and a lot more science, so that, so we are very precise. But if I have to use general broad brushstrokes, it's actually, in a very solid ground.
Thank
We
you.
have time for one last quick question, and I'd like to take it to the back. There's a lady right at the back over there. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question. When it comes to eating onion and garlic, like some spiritual organizations say that don't eat onion and garlic, like they really gives an impact on our body, like skipping them.
Yeah, I think, look, there are a lot of, food is something, people have a very social and cultural relationship to it. I think there's absolutely, no harm in honoring that if, that's what, there is no particular, food or a vegetable or ingredient which is must have that, we consume or something bad will happen to this. Having said that, I don't think I have not come across any science. I think both onion and garlic are supposed to be quite good for your health. They have really good ingredients in them. So if your culture and social norms allow you it, by all means. But if you are missing out on that, I don't think it's a big deal also, because fortunately we have so many varieties, and today we have access to fruits, vegetables from all over the world. So you can pick and choose and have little more fun and experiment with what you put in the body.
And that brings us to the close of the session. I know that Mukesh will be signing copies after the session, so please feel free to ask further questions when you meet him to get your copies signed. Thank you so much, Mukesh. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Let's all get fitter. Let's move every day, sleep more, and eat less if we can.
Thanks, Manasi. Thanks all. Thank you.